The glutton for punishment that I am, I got onto Skype yesterday and started speaking to NephilimFree. The reason for calling him was that a while ago he accepted my challenge to a debate on the subject of geology, in place of Angry Womble. I was mainly contacting him in order to share my terms for the debate, and I'll make those public in this video. I was also interested to inquire into NephilimFree's latest videos, following another gangbang call with dprjones, Ellie Fired 1991, and me. NephilimFree rage quit when talking to dprjones, and was coaxed back into the call on the condition that we kept tabs on dprjones. He also rage quit when talking to me, when I pressed him on the subject of why he seldom produces sources for his videos, and as we'll see in a minute, this proves a very touchy subject on 2 occasions. My issue was that when NephilimFree uploaded this conversation to YouTube, these rage quits had been omitted, along with a very heavy silence for 3 or 4 minutes, after NephilimFree was asked, if the Bible is scientifically accurate, does killing birds cure leprosy? I asked him if he still had the original recordings, and unfortunately he says he doesn't. I also wanted to ask why these passages were omitted from the recording. In order that I can't be accused of being a pot calling the kettle black, I hereby present an unedited recording of my calls with NephilimFree. There is a long silence during part of it while Neph gets a cup of coffee, and I will make you aware of this when it comes round. And as we'll see at the end, for all his bravado, NephilimFree finally backed out of debating me, after saying on several occasions that he would. I think by NephilimFree's own logic, that gives me every right to call him a chicken. I would also encourage you to watch both parts of this video, in order to make sure that I'm not misrepresenting the truth in any way. Thank you. Good evening, Neph.
Hello?
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 Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Marvellous. No, just a couple of things I want to quickly talk to you about. You know the Skype call with dprjones that we had the other day? dprjones, Ellie Fired,
yes.
and myself. Do you have the original unedited recording of that? Because unfortunately I tried to take a recording but my software didn't work. I was wondering
I'm afraid not. After I made my videos using it, I delete the original audio file, so I no longer have the original audio file.
Okay, because
yeah.
No,
the only audio copy I have of it is what's in the videos that I made from it.
No, it's not in your recycle bin by any chance.
No, I'm sorry. I clean it out too frequently.
Okay, because I know there are a couple of bits you edited out of that call, and I just thought it would be fair to make the original uncut version available to people.
What did I add to it?
Well, you didn't add anything to it, but there were certain bits that you removed.
There was?
There were a couple. I mean, for a start, the end of the conversation is missing. The bit where I press you about why you don't provide sources in many of your videos, that bit's missing entirely. And there's a halfway through.
Well, I mean, I provided what part I thought would be interesting for my audience on my show, on my channel. You know, there's my videos are in no way misleading. I hope you wouldn't go there and say that they are.
Well, I don't.
Just because I left off the last 2 minutes of something because I didn't agree with the diatribe that they were producing. I don't find that misleading in any way.
There were 2 occasions where you left the call, one with me and one with dprjones, which both of which are missing, and I just wondered why you deleted those.
Oh, well, I just clipped those out of there because it was just pointless. I was gone for 30 seconds, and when I came back, I didn't think my audience really wants to sit and listen for, a minute, 30 seconds, a minute and a half while in blank silence or when I'm not there to speak.
Well, all right, but you could have cut out the silence.
People complain enough that, my videos are long as they are. Some people don't have the patience to sit and listen to 2 or 4 15 or 30-minute videos, for a 2-hour conversation. Most people don't have the kind of interest in these things that you and I do, maybe.
Okay, but I'm not saying you had to necessarily leave the silence in, but you could have at least left in everything that was actually said, all the audio that was recorded, the bits where you dropped out of the conversation. You seem to lose your temper slightly with dprjones, which is why you dropped out of the call in the first place, and we kind of had to coax you back slightly. But it just seems odd that you left those.
Well, I cut it out when I left, and I started it back up when I joined, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, as I said, what I provided was nearly most of the conversation, and if there was a couple of minutes of somebody ranting on and on about something that at the end of the call that I left out for, I don't see a problem with that. Maybe you have one, but I'm sorry, I don't.
Well, all right, but I would just say that you haven't left in all the audio. You haven't stopped it where you stopped recording. There are bits which you have removed, particularly where you lost your temper and ended the call.
But I didn't cut the video in such a way that, sections of conversation were left out. The only within the inside of the video, the portion that I provided, it's all there with the exception of me, the call being dropped.
Well, that's not true, Neph. You know that's not true.
No, that's not. That is not true.
That is.
Other than that, it's a continuous stream of conversation, with the exception of that. The recording may not begin at the very beginning of it, didn't end at the very end of it. I used something in between, but what I used was all continuous, with the exception of where the phone call dropped out.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily true. I think you know that there are bits of dialogue that you have omitted during that recording.
I don't think so. But even if I did, that's entirely my prerogative.
Either that or you deliberately stopped the recording before we got to those rather heated moments of the debate.
No, I didn't deliberately. There is an occasion where this audio program that I use, it seems to have a bug in it where it will occasionally stop recording on its own, and I'll lose something, and I'll be very angry that it stopped recording, and I have to click to start it because I realized it hadn't been recording for the last 10 minutes. I've seen that happen once or twice with it. It's not a bug-free program, unfortunately. Most of the time it records every second and splits the file, and will create new ones, but it does have a bug where it will crash once in a while.
Oh, okay. The other thing I meant to say was I just want to quickly ask about, I know you were on the Magic Sandwich show earlier. I was out at that particular time, but I've just been looking back through the recordings. You've put an extract of it on your channel.
Yeah, in fact, I'm uploading the first part of it. I uploaded by accident part 2 to it first, and now is uploading as we speak, part 1, which is 89% done now.
Oh, okay. It's just the fact.
No, I'm sorry. That one has yet to start uploading. I'm uploading 2 at the moment. It'll be my upload speed, since I changed ISPs. It's not that good. It'll be 30 minutes or an hour before it's uploaded, probably.
Okay, well, I'm not worried about the other half of the call. It's just the fact that you say in it that they dropped you out of the call on the false pretense that there wasn't any time left. Well, I've listened to it, and have you heard what DPR said as soon as he took you out of the call?
Yeah, I was there, and I remember.
But did you hear
the entire? Yeah, I did hear him. And I throughout the entire conversation, I was cut off in my responses to questions. It was claimed that I wasn't providing a response to the question when I was clearly providing one that was to the point of the question, and I was barraged with questions. I had to fight to be able to ask a question.
I don't know if that's
what
true,
they wanted
Neph.
was a one-way. What they wanted was a one-way dialogue. This is common with evolutionists. I've debated so many of them. But this common tactic of theirs, so long as they're controlling the media, that is the location for the debate, or even when they're not, in many cases, they want to ask a lot of questions and for you to be able to answer them. And then when it comes time for you to ask questions, they claim, oh, we're not moving off subject. We're not through with this one yet. Like, heck, we're not. I already answered your questions. It's as though I'm not allowed to ask questions.
I don't believe
because they don't want to answer. They don't want to answer the intelligent questions of creationists because they can't provide evidence and science. They can't back up evolution theory with their responses to those questions. So they try to control the conversation, and that's what happened today. I had to fight to make a response. And when I did, they would cut me off. DPR was constantly cutting me off and giving some out. For example, he said he was going to allow me to respond to to Don Exodus 2. And then when it came time, I said, I'd like to ask my question now. He says, well, we can't do that. We're moving on. Our Aaron Ra's been waiting. See, he just skirted that completely. Wouldn't allow me to ask my question.
He did
sent me off to to Aaron Ra. It happens all the time.
Neph, do you acknowledge the fact that he said that you could answer your question, he would then pass to Don Exodus 2 to answer, and then immediately to Aaron Ra to answer? You were made aware of that before you started. It was
no, he said
he said
he would allow me to ask a question. And when it came time for me to do so, he wouldn't let me do that. He said, no, we don't have enough time. We're moving on. Aaron Ra's been waiting, and we're moving on to Aaron Ra now.
He said that you can ask your question.
Sir, I was there. Sir,
I just listened to it, and I know what was said.
I had it. I'm uploading it right now.
But he said that you could ask a question, and then he would ask both Don Exodus 2 and Aaron Ra for an answer. He was generous in letting you respond to what Don Exodus 2 had to say.
Please.
Well, that was
he tried to silence me as much as he possibly could.
I would also like to say, I might take some recordings and see what percentage of the conversation was you talking, and I suspect it was close to or greater than 50% of the time. So I don't think there was any attempt to silence you.
Surprised me with one.
But in any case,
it's one creationist there, and 5 evolutionists or 6.
But it's a very odd.
I'm the only one.
But are you aware what DPR said after he cut you off?
Yeah, I am aware that he cut me off because I began asking questions about information.
That's not what I asked.
Cannot be answered.
That's not what I asked. I asked, are you aware what he said after he cut you off?
No, I really couldn't care what he said because I know why he cut me off.
No, well, what he said afterwards may very well change your opinion of why he cut you off. He said that he said that he would be more than happy to have you back on next week's Magic Sandwich show. So
I've heard that before. And when DPR and I had a conversation in Skype, he said that, when I started getting, because I basically just sat there and answered questions is what I did for the most part. But when it came time for me to start asking questions, DPR got loudmouth, and suddenly it's too late to talk and it's time to go.
You were the one asking the question.
Sir, right, and it's when the questions get thick, when they can't answer, you get 1 or 2 or 3 out, and after you've answered 18, then it's time for them to go all of a sudden. I mean, I've seen this all the time. It happened to me 2 weeks ago when I was debating a man who has a bachelor's degree, or a master's, I don't know which one, in evolutionary biology. I started to ask him a subject about something else. We'd rehashed one subject for an hour, and then I try to ask him about something else within his paradigm of uniformitarianism. No, we're not changing the subject. So he didn't want to. But when I finally got him into a conversation about it, then I asked him a couple of questions about the stratification of the Earth, which couldn't be explained by uniformitarianism. Oh, well, you know what? I'm tired of this. I gotta go.
Well, if he was an evolution...
It's a common tactic, evolution.
Well, if he was an evolutionary biologist, I'm not surprised if he didn't want to answer questions on geology. It's almost certainly...
He's the one that brought up he's the one that brought up the first subject of our discussion, which was chalk formation.
Well, yes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's a geologist.
That's the only subject he wanted to talk about, as a matter of fact. When I tried to get him onto something else, or even another subject within geology, he didn't want to discuss it.
But was he talking about...
He's the one who started the conversation about geology. I didn't. I was willing to discuss...
Was he discussing it from a geological point of view or from a biological point of view?
I don't think he could have made a distinction from his
because you know that chalk is a biological deposit. It's not a.
He was talking about the formation of chalk deposit.
Yes, and are you aware that chalk is made up of? It is basically a collection of living organisms, or formerly living.
Well, this is how ridiculous what you're saying is to me. Then he should have conducted his conversation, if he wanted to discuss it only from a biological standpoint, he should have discussed merely what is chalk, how it lives and dies, instead of how chalk formations form, because that gets into geology, you see.
Well, not necessarily. What was it he was trying to argue with you? What was his case?
You can listen to the video. It's on. I'm uploading it as we speak.
Okay.
His case was that chalk formations take millions of years to form, and they're uplifted, and that's how from a slow rain of phytoplankton. And of course, I discredited those claims by pointing out that we have fossils in these chalk formations deep within them that could not have existed had these been formed in a gyre over millions of years of time.
So, but was he arguing the fact?
He didn't want to discuss that.
But was he arguing the fact it's a commonly leveled criticism at young Earth creationists is that no matter how much you try and stretch the productivity of the seas, there's no way that algae could bloom in sufficient quantities to form the depth.
No, I don't remember that he ever made that assertion. He may have. I don't recall. But if he had, he would have been wrong, obviously.
Okay.
Look at the sheer volume of the chalk formations around the world.
Well, if you're uploading it,
outrageous.
Well, if you're uploading it, then I'll listen to it in full, and it's probably best not to speculate about it.
I have a cup of coffee waiting for me in the microwave. If you'll excuse me for just a moment, I need to go get that. Okay,
that's absolutely fine.
Yeah,
that's
fine.
I'll
be right back. Okay, I'm back.
Okay. Yeah, just one more thing before I want to go. First of all, are you still interested in debating me on the subject of geology?
I don't see why not.
Because I've prepared an interim list of the terms which I would like to lay down.
I've gotten away from formal debating. I think it's pretty moot now.
Well,
so I'm into informal debates, and I'd rather keep it that way.
Well, would you mind having a look over them, because I don't think they're too demanding as such. I can send you an electronic copy, or I could read them to you now, or both.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. My experience with debating atheists has been a relatively entertaining, though negative experience, because, as I said, they attempt to, so long as they own the media where you discuss, especially if they do, that is, you're on their ground, like I was calling into the Magic Sandwich Show, then they play these games that I've mentioned. And so a formal structured debate might be an interesting way to go, but I've gotten used to this informal format, and I rather like it. I've become fond of it because it doesn't require, it allows people to have more an interaction, a dialogue, and I think that's really good. I think the audience would actually enjoy that much, much, much more. And I do this for the audience, not for myself. I do it for people on the fence about whether or not evolution is true or creation is true. So it's much more entertaining for the audience, and that's my target, is the audience, and not a formal structured debate so much. So I've moved away from structured debates, and I prefer the dialogue kind of debate now because it is far more interesting to an audience listening.
Well, this is kind of the thing that I'm after to a certain extent. I mean, I can, if I send you I'll send them to you now, but what I'm kind of after is a reasonably unstructured debate, whereby it's not in the case that you have a 3-minute time limit per point that you want to make, because I don't think that that works particularly well. What I would rather... Where's the file gone?
Hold on a second, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
I got some. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. All I thought I would rather have would be sort of each party gets a 3-minute uninterrupted session to sort of introduce their arguments, sort of outline what they would like to discuss, and then the rest of the debate is reasonably unstructured. It's a sort of a fair dialogue. The only thing I would quite like is a moderator of some sort to step in only if it's felt that one side is getting an unfair share of the conversation or isn't allowing the other person to answer, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm okay. I'm all for a moderator if the moderator is there strictly to ensure that when someone is asked a question that they attempt to actually answer it, or that when somebody is it's turn for someone to be able to ask a question, it's fair enough that if somebody is not allowing somebody to ask their own questions, that they step in and say, wait a minute. Now he's been trying to ask you a question for, and you just, you're not acting like you want to answer the question, so please respond to his question. That kind of thing. That's about it. Other than that, I like the unstructured format best. I think it's more entertaining to an audience, and that's my target,
Yeah, I don't have much. I think that would be quite a nice way to go about it. I can't find the blooming file now. Where's it gone? Excuse me just a minute. I'd also like to have questions as well at the end, I think, because I think it would be an interesting way to go about it. Let's see if I can drag and drop. Suspect I can't. Oh no, there we go. That's worked. So I'm just looking through to see if there's anything that might cause issue. Yeah, I've already said I would quite like a sort of 3-minute introductory thing at the beginning, just so we can state our positions.
Well, that file didn't come in.
Did it not?
That file didn't come in. No, okay, wait a minute. No, I clicked open file. That didn't work either. I'm not familiar with file transferring in Skype too much. I clicked on save file as, and it saved it in some unreadable format, it looks like.
Oh, it might be the newer version of Word. Just a moment.
Oh, okay. I don't have Microsoft Word either. I have WordPad only, which will read a doc file or RTF, but...
Yeah, I'll try sending it to you as a doc file. That was a docx file. I'll see if I can send it to you.
Yeah, that might have been it.
There we go, try that one.
Alright, now I should be able to click Save As even while it's coming in.
Yeah, it should be fine.
I think so. Okay. Alright. Okay. No, it's an unknown file type.
Okay, I'll copy it into WordPad.
Okay, wait a minute. I see it's the part 1 is after the extension. I think. Let me try deleting that and then file extension. Oh, wait a minute. No, now it seems to be readable. Okay, that's what I did. I think I renamed it. Yeah. Okay, so I see it now.
Yeah, I mean, you're welcome to do this, or I could, we can discuss the points one by one, depending on what you prefer. These things that I would really like to be insistent on, and one is that I stream it through Skeptic TV, and I've kind of mentioned this to you. What that would entail from my end would be one of my friends on Skype simply being in on the call. They would not be in a position to say anything or interact in any way. They would simply be feeding the audio through to Blog TV. It's a system we've worked out which seems to work quite well. It doesn't jam up the call or anything like that. And you're welcome to do the same if you want. You're welcome to stream it through any medium that you want. I've got no problem with that. Another one would be I would like it to be publicly announced on both our YouTube channels at least 24 hours in advance so that people know it's taking place. Point 9 is a kind of a slightly petty point, but it's on certain occasions you've called the academic credentials of people like Rhyme Maiden 1 and Angry Womble into question.
I've done what now?
The handle that you seem to have ascribed to Angry Womble is the lady who calls herself a geologist.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
that to my mind suggests that you don't believe she has a legitimate geology degree.
I really couldn't care less if she does or not. The claims that she made
But,
are preposterous.
well, she didn't. Well, I think I've already discussed this with you, but I think a lot of the claims that you think she made, she actually didn't.
No, she did actually. She said that. Let's see if I remember correctly. She said that the strata of the Earth are not sorted by granule size, which is false because the preponderance of them are, and that the boundaries between, if I'm not mistaken, she also said the boundaries between strata are not clearly defined, and that's preposterous as
I
well.
don't remember her saying
And
that.
I believe she did, but I'll admit that's questionable. I seem to remember something to that effect. I know I discussed it, and it seems to me I remember her disagreeing with me about it, but I digress.
The other one was an argument about resources, and one thing is that if there is, if you want to direct me towards images of, say, sedimentary compositions or whatever it might be in support of your case, you can post links to the images in the Skype chat. My friend who's broadcasting into Skeptic TV will put those images up on screen for the benefit of the viewers, and that, again, any parties that you want to broadcast that through are welcome to do the same. The other thing is, this being a scientific debate, I think if there are any sources that we would like to fall back upon during the debate, I think it would be wise to share them in advance so that we both have time to read them properly and to understand them, and to, rather than trying to shoot from the hip and understand what the criticisms might be.
Yeah, I really could care less about sources, because what I find is that sources can be credible or discredulous, and the claims that are made about geology and evolution in secular sources come to falsified conclusions. So pointing them out, quoting them, really doesn't do anything to me, and I don't find it in the least bit worrisome in any way, because I can demonstrate how the claims that that their conclusion points to uniformitarianism is false. So I really don't care what the geologist says, what subject they're discussing about the strata or the formation of rock. I don't see any challenge to creation in geology whatsoever, no matter what the source.
Well, the only reason why I say this is because there are certain statements that you make, like that, say the Earth is covered with half a mile's depth of sediment, or that the vast proportion of fossils are undeformed, or that fossils are found all the way throughout mountains, or the vast majority of sedimentary layers are sorted by granule size, and so on. Mm-hmm. I just think if you're going to throw out statements like that, you should be able to back them up with at least one reasonably credible source.
Wow. So let me ask you a question then. Are you actually saying that you believe the sedimentary strata on this Earth are not of an average depth of half a mile?
I don't know is the honest answer. I've never heard any figure.
Okay.
I'm just saying that, I mean, that doesn't particularly matter to me. The actual amount of sediment doesn't really make much of a difference to either case.
Okay.
But,
or that the vast majority of fossils in the fossil record of life are not distorted by heat and pressure?
Well, again,
are you making that assertion?
My main issue with that is this is why I'm asking you, I would like to see some sources on the subject, is when you say the vast majority, because I simply don't have any idea what proportion of the fossils are distorted by heat and pressure or not. I'm not going to get into this discussion too much now, but
well, here's something you might want to do though: is just start reading websites about fossils from university websites and from the personal websites of scientists, and examining the photographs of them. There are tens of thousands of photographs of fossils on the available right on the internet, and See if you find a reference to deformity or deformation of the fossil by heat or temperature in any of them, and I can almost promise you,
But
if you looked at 1,000 web pages devoted to fossils by secular university websites, you'd be lucky if you found one of them that talks about deformity of a fossil.
But don't you agree
Due to
don't you admit
pressure.
that is looking at it from the wrong direction? Because
No, not at all. I think if the opposite were the truth, if the majority of fossils, or even half of all the fossils that we have recovered from the Earth, if a symptom of them was deformity due to pressure and heat, then that would be so well spoken, so spoken of. It would be just very commonplace. Even laypersons all around the world would know that the fossils in the Earth are deformed. But see, that's just not the case.
well,
It's
first of
actually
all,
pretty rare to find fossils that are deformed by heat. I'm not saying none exist. I'm saying rare in comparison to the plethora of fossils that have been recovered from the Earth, which is hundreds of millions. The percentage of deformed fossils is extraordinarily low.
I mean, first of all, I'm going to say it's a slightly arbitrary definition of what you would consider to be a pristine fossil, because certainly most fossils, especially those of soft-bodied creatures, have been pressed flat, and we're obviously not going to assume that Archaeopteryx, etc.,
Well, we
were
have
two-dimensional
yeah.
organisms.
Well, we have plenty of pristine fossils exist. Excuse me. Most fossils are not pristine. I understand that, but plenty of pristine fossils do exist. Many are partial. Most are partial fossils. Probably the majority are partial, and only a lesser percentage are complete. Although plenty of those exist. So but they're not what we observe is not deformed, though. That's pretty rare. Even partial fossils are not deformed by heat. The bones are not cooked. They're not bent. They're not boiled or burned. There's no evidence that they were, cooked at a temperature of 300 Celsius for years and years and years and basically turned into nothing and that would have left a different kind of fossil, from what we say.
Well,
If it would have left a fossil at all.
I don't quite understand that statement, but I'm going to quickly go back to this. You say I should look for photographs of fossils. Photographs don't give you any kind of idea about what the percentage is, because
Okay,
I
do if you look at 10,000 photographs of fossils, and you don't see any that are deformed by pressure and heat, then you can pretty much guess you hadn't even been presented with one yet.
But the point is that the fossils which have been deformed are very rarely studied, because they could give misleading impressions.
Because they're very rare.
Well, you don't know. That's my point. You don't.
I do know that. You don't know it, sir. I know it. You don't.
On what basis do you know it?
For having studied the subject.
From having looked at pictures. What I'm looking for are numbers. I'm looking for numbers.
I'm not going to play a reference game with you. There's no chance in debating you. Sorry.
Well,
if you want a paper war, do it in the journals, pal. Write your own papers and see what happens. I'm not going to have a source war with you. Okay? Sorry. Thanks for calling.
No, you need to be able to provide, Neph.
Thank you.
Neph.
Thank you.